Hello and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Welcome back to the Last Looks podcast, Melanie.
Thanks, Jamie Lee. I'm excited to be back.
Now, last week you shared with us how amazing Hask's Biotin Boost collection is. Today, can you talk to us about another Hask hair care collection that hairstylists trust to use on set and that consumers love?
Of course, I'd love to. First, I want to point out that Hask is a problem solution hair care brand that offers a wide variety of collections for consumers. Stylists and consumers alike have come to trust Hask's high-performance solutions that deliver healthy, gorgeous results every time, at price points that are a steal. It's important to know that all of our formulas are free of the bad stuff, including sulfates, parabens, phthalates, gluten, and aluminum starch. The brand is also cruelty-free and Leaping Bunny certified. And, oh yeah, I forgot something really important. Because of our ingredient-inspired collections, the product fragrances are absolutely incredible.
Oh man, I love a product that smells divine.
They are really terrific. One of our original collections is also one of our best-selling collections, Argan Oil. This collection consists of 5 SKUs that are designed to strengthen and repair dry, damaged, frizzy hair. First, there's the shampoo, which works to revive and restore your hair's health. It's infused with argan oil to help repair breakage and smooth split ends. Next, you have conditioner, which detangles and moisturizes while helping to protect against breakage. Rehydrating and repairing damaged hair takes work. Using a deep conditioner is a miracle worker. The Argan Deep Conditioner should be considered a staple in every hair care regimen and should be used a minimum of twice a week for better results. Regular and consistent use of deep conditioners leaves damaged hair shiny, frizz-free, and feeling silky soft.
I feel like this would be a great option to use on talent's hair to prep to go under a wig. I always like to use a little conditioning treatment so their hair is being nourished while it's under a wig all day.
It's definitely a great idea. And we also have 2 argan-focused styling SKUs. First, you have the Argan Shine Oil. This product is your rescue for frizzy and damaged hair. It's a lightweight, alcohol-free oil which absorbs instantly to provide frizz-free shine without leaving an oily residue. And you can use it on either wet or dry hair. Argan oil is rich in essential fatty acids and penetrates hair to restore beautiful shine and provide soft, silky results in dry and damaged hair. Then you have our rock star, Hask's Argan 5-in-1 Leave-In Conditioning Spray, which is an incredible primer for hair. In fact, this is our #1 selling SKU, so there's something that everyone is loving about it. This specialty blend of ingredients, including argan oil from Morocco, is designed to pack your strands with moisturizing and conditioning agents that help restore dry, damaged hair. And it provides 5 benefits in one product. This SKU conditions and detangles, adds shine, repairs and controls frizz, provides thermal protection, and moisturizes to prevent breakage.
I love it. Melanie, thanks to you and Hask for being part of the podcast today. I'm enjoying learning about the Hask collections.
Jamie Lee, it was a pleasure to be here today. Let me leave you and your listeners in the industry with this. The Hask brand welcomes the opportunity to continue building our relationships with the Hollywood styling community. If we can support a project you're working on, send us an email at hask@stonemanagement.net. We'd be happy to help.
And now, our feature presentation.
Today, I'm speaking with hair designer Dean Banowetz and makeup designer Tonia Green. This dynamic duo have worked on shows like America's Got Talent, So You Think You Can Dance, and X Factor. We chat about what it takes to run such creative and challenging shows, how important planning is, and they share some of those uh-oh moments of crossing fingers and praying it works.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Hey, now you guys have worked together designing a long list of shows like American Idol, So You Think You Can Dance, The X Factor, and A Christmas Story Live, just to name a few. I want to know how you guys met and what was the first show you designed together?
Tonia, we met on American Idol, didn't we? Wasn't that the show?
Yes. Back in 2006, I think it was season 5. Dean was the department head for hair, and I had come in as an assistant to the lead at the time, who was Mishkan. and her cousin and I were good friends, Amy. And I was living in San Diego at the time, and she basically was starting a makeup line and was like, if you ever move back, it's right when reality TV was just starting. And so there was kind of a line of, you could have so many people that were in the union and then so many people that were not in the union, from what I understand. So I was able to come on and start assisting. And that was where I originally met Dean.
Because I think too, when, reality shows started, there wasn't really a category for them to go into. So that's why, the contracts were so awkward, because a lot of it was union, but there was a lot of it that wasn't. And so that was super confusing. And then I think once it found its place, and I think that wasn't even until probably season 6 or 7, where it actually went full union.
So was it helping people get their days to get into the union, or?
Yes, those days, you were already union. Those days did count for me getting into 706.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very good. So what was the first show that you ended up designing, Tonia, with Dean?
X Factor. That was the first adventure.
Yes, X Factor.
Oh God, that show was hard. It was so hard. And I think that's probably, we knew each other, but I wasn't the lead on Idol, so I didn't really interact with him, on that kind of level. So this was the first time that we were both going to be collaborating as far as looks and what kind of story narrative we wanted to create with all of these performers coming in and the background dancers. And it was a really ambitious show. There was so many people and so much turnaround, and everybody had a full on look. Like, it was on Idol, they would come out and you'd kind of gradually get to, the performer, they'd go through the star wash, as they say, or whatever. But on X Factor, they came out and they were supposed to be superstars from the very moment they hit the stage.
Right.
It was interesting, because the one thing that was, described to me with X Factor is they said every single performance is going to be an award show performance. So, like, anything you would see for the opening number of the Academy Awards or whatever, that's their focus. And that was their focus. And it was a lot, every single number. I loved it.
I loved it too.
It was just a lot of work.
I think in our line of work, we tend to gravitate towards that kind of stuff anyway, don't we? It's like we like to be busy.
Yeah, and I should, when I say it's a lot of work, doing the hair and makeup, that's our passion. The work was dealing with this team member or this creative or this contestant. Oh, I don't like that. I don't feel comfortable. Those sorts. That's where it becomes work. Is just navigating and kind of negotiating personalities and also creative needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how important is it to you guys for your departments to work together as a team?
Very.
Well, it's so crazy.
Necessary.
And what's so interesting, well, for me, kind of my guideline for that is I always think of it as 80-20. As long as I'm happy with 80% of my creative and I can be flexible with 20% for, with makeup and wardrobe, and vice versa. Tonia might be like, Dean, I want to really do something great, applique on this eye. Can you make sure that we have the face free? And I'm like, absolutely, because that's just another creative direction for me to make sure all departments kind of get what they are really needing to really emphasize their look too.
Well, and sometimes I think, I'll know that I need a little bit more time with someone, or Dean will know that he needs a little bit more time. And it's like, hey, can I get them first? Or can we just get to this point and then we can jump in and do it together? And I think we're both really receptive to that. And it's never like oh no, I need them. I need my time. It's, it's like, how are we going to do this so that we can just get to the end goal,
Right.
Yeah. And so I guess that trickles down into your team members, right? So what are you looking for when you're finding artists to crew a show?
Well, for me, my biggest thing too is it depends on the show. Do you know what I'm saying? So if it's like, so you think you can dance, I need someone who's going to be quick on their feet because it's a live show. And literally that show is like Broadway on crack. You've got 6 minutes to do full hair, makeup, and wardrobe changes. So team member wise, I need someone who's going to be quick, but really super efficient as well. And the biggest thing too is you got to be kind to each other, and you got to be worker friendly, because there's a lot of times where Tonia would be like, you know what, we need to get these eyes. And I'm like, back up, let them do what they need to do. But it's just like, how do you navigate a look? How do you kind of problem solve it before it even happens? That's why rehearsal is so important for me. And just that team that works together. And if somebody on the team was like, well, do we have to do these looks for rehearsal? And I'm like, yeah, because it's rehearsal. That's what it's for. You know what I mean? So I always look for people who are kind, who can just step up to the plate and just make the magic happen.
Absolutely. Makes sense. What about you, Tonia?
Oh, gosh, so many things. I think Dean made a really good point about it depends on what show it is, because I like to always put people in a position of being able to succeed. So if I have a show that has, really heavy creative and might need a little bit more of like costume character work, then I will, put people that are strong in that nature on my team so that I have the ability to rely on them for that specific. And then if it requires, strong beauty, I kind of pick and choose who's where. My teams are always kind of different because, there's so many amazing artists out there, and I love to be able to, kind of use everybody where I think that they'll succeed. And, you need to be able to think on your feet. You need to be able to collaborate and, be creative, problem solve, and, not freeze up when something happens, and just like, right. Oh my God, what do I do? It's like, you gotta keep going. You can't stop. You gotta be quick. Some people that they take a long time to, do a beauty makeup, and that's fine, but I'll put them on a show where I actually have that in the schedule to be able to do that, and take another person and put them on a show where I need things that are super quick, but clean and, and creative all at the same time. So, and I think that energy plays a good part too. Like, you need to be able to read a room, read the person that's in your chair. Like, these people are all in a competition. So there's a lot of nerves, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of, them in their head, that performance wasn't good in rehearsal. And that now they're kind of freaking out. Like, you need to be able to kind of read the person in your chair and know when it's a good time to be, chatty, and when it's a good time to kind of just sit back and let them be in their head for a minute and know that that's okay,
The other thing too that we're both incredibly good about is dividing up like a diverse team. Because, when we're dealing with contestants from all over the world or US or wherever, we need to make sure that, we have a different just cross section of people to do multicultural hair, education within the department too, because you're working with different types of texture, you're working with different ethnicities and so on and so forth. And I always relate it to Yuko. Yuko Coach, she was on my team, but she's, Japanese. And I
love Yuko.
And I go, Yuko, your extensions are really cute, but they, you can see them. And she goes, yes, because in Japan, when you see extensions, it means you have money. And I was like, I wouldn't know that coming from a farm in Iowa. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I love to have that diversification on a team, because it's the knowledge also that just helps you prepare. And when you're doing a live show, every ounce of knowledge comes into play. Those are kind of the characteristic traits too that I'm looking for.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Definitely.
I didn't know that either. But yeah.
No, I had no clue. And I was like, oh, it's a cute little knot. And she goes, yes, because that means I have money in Japan. And I was like, okay, awesome. I'm going to start wearing some extensions on the outside of it. So.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Also, I think something that happens on our sets a lot too is, there's only so much time in a day. We're only given so many people on our team, and here we are given the schedule of the day, and it's like, okay, you get this group for 10 minutes. So with that, I need somebody to be able to be like, I got 10 minutes. What can I do in 10 minutes? And what are the 3 most important things to address right now, Right. So, being able to kind of pick and choose where you're going to start so that you can be finished and done and not holding up production in any sense. That's really important as well.
On a project like America's Got Talent or The Four, are contestants looks like predetermined from higher up, like in the producer's world, or are you collaborating like directly with the contestants to come up with their looks and styles?
I think personally the best show to really talk about the creatives would probably be So You Think You Can Dance.
Okay.
Because Tonia and myself and wardrobe meet with the executive producer and the show choreographer about different looks, because each choreographer has a specific need for what they want to, portray that number that's going to be going on. And so we have a week to really kind of search for different concepts and ideas, but also, to reach out to this choreographer and go, okay, for this hip hop number, we get videos also so we can see the aggressiveness of the dance. So I have knowledge of how I need to lock it down. Tonia has an idea of, these guys are going to be sweating a lot and we're going to have to figure that out. But we also look at wardrobe, colors, and concepts. It's one of the greatest things about that show too, is because you get to be really creative and you have a week to kind of prep and do damage control and try to, like, if somebody says, I want a detachable ponytail, I'm like, great. Would you like it detachable from their head, from a hat, from the wall? What would you like it to detach from? And we have a week to kind of troubleshoot and figure it out and kind of rig some things to make it happen. But so you think it's usually, don't you think, Tonia, it's usually from the choreographer because they have that image in their head?
Conceptually, yeah, you kind of get the mood that they're going for, the feeling that they want. Dance is so much of a feeling that it's like, how do we bring that out on our end? And then we also have to go back and, again, going back to staging and timing and be like, okay, stage manager, how much time do we have to do this? Because then that'll also determine what we end up coming up with. Because it's like, I only have 6 minutes. I can do this 6-minute version. If I have 10, 15 minutes, we can do this version. You have to be able to go with the flow and, deal with things changing all the time too. Because I feel like that's a huge part of our the formats that we do.
Yeah.
But, the other thing too, that's really important what Tonia and I both do is we prep so much that it's almost like, okay, so we only have those 3 minutes. And Tonia's like, great, I'll prep a piece and I can do it in 2. And I'm like, awesome, I can do a hair piece and we can do it in 2.5, right? So it's like you just kind of divide and conquer and you really figure out what you're allowed to do within that time frame. But again, the most important thing is it has to be locked down and secured. So during a dance, it doesn't fly off.
I always just kind of say yes to everything and figure it out later. And I feel like that is the only way that you'll come up with, a way to do something. If you start thinking about how you don't have enough time, I'm not going to be able to do it, then you kind of just end up steering that way. But if you just go yes, and you've told the choreographer, yeah, we can do it, it's like, okay, I got to come up with something. How are we going to do this?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So on a show like that, the contestants, they're pretty much in the hands of the choreographer and you guys. They just hand that look over and trust to everybody else of how they look.
Yeah, because most dancers rely on that look to really portray an image, just like an actor. If you're doing a 40s piece and you're, in 2020 clothes, it's not going to feel right. You know what I'm saying? So, but like on American Idol, that's a different situation because they're going out to sing. So we'll get an idea and I'll, talk to the contestant about it. And they're like, oh, well, I just don't like the tips of my ears. So if we do this updo, could we just kind of pin those down a little bit? Or, it's all based on the contestant, wishes also, because when you look good, you feel better. When you feel better, you're going to perform better. And so that's, at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, is to just make them look awesome and feel awesome.
Yeah, you don't want them going out there thinking about what they look like or, conscious of anything. You want them to be able to put 100% into their performance, whatever that be, a dance, a song, an act or whatever. So you want to make sure that they're comfortable with what you're doing and kind of talk it out. And if there's an issue, then we just go back. Like I said, you got to be willing to change, go back to the producers, be like, hey, they kind of want to do this. What do you think? Here's a version we can do, and just come up with a solution that way so that at the end of the day, everybody's happy.
Yeah. Because I guess with the singing ones as well, ultimately you guys are kind of steering them into the direction of what their image could be once if they win that and then go on to actually, become a pop star or whatever it is, the direction that they're going in. You're kind of the beginning of that image for them, right?
Yes. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
What an opportunity for us,
And it's a great opportunity for them to kind of play with their look and experiment and do fun, different things based on, whatever it is they're singing. It's really rare that you get that opportunity to have a full team of people go, you know what? Today we're going to make you look like you came out of a snow globe.
Which we actually have done.
Where did that reference come from? I feel like that might have happened.
Well, and they just look
happened.
at us. Yeah, they just look at us like we're crazy, and I go, "No, legit, you're gonna be frosty, okay, girl."
Oh
I
my
love
God.
it.
We've done so many fun looks.
Yeah.
Back to just like when it's not a character makeup, but just like a glam makeup, I also think that, you don't want to change them. That's never the goal, is to change them. It's just to get to a place where it's like the best version of themselves, or, just find that confidence in them.
Just enhancing what's there.
Exactly.
Enhance the good and minimize the not so good. That's our jam.
So are you guys doing the judges as well? You guys are responsible for taking care of judges and guests and things?
It depends on which show. I have a lot of them where I am doing whoever doesn't have a personal on the panel.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones where the judges are glams all taken care of, and we're just doing the contestant department.
And I think too, it does depend on the show too, because for So You Think, we're hands-on backstage. It's easier for us to have somebody else stand by for the judges on that show, in particular. But, like there's some shows where I'm, like on Shark Tank, I'm a personal by myself. And so it's just taking care of that one. It's very different. It's like a good dichotomy, just depends on the show.
Absolutely. Because there's some big personalities coming through in those judges sections, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to lie. My favorite judge has to be Derek Huff, because he is hilarious. And what? When you work with fun people like that, it makes the show so much more memorable. And, because we're all just creating entertainment to have fun. So when you have someone who maybe has a little off personality, you're like, oh, dang, are you going to have fun on the show?
I love it.
But it's also knowing when to speak and just when to listen.
Yeah. That's what our job entails a lot, doesn't it? Just knowing when to push and when to let it go and when to.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So speaking of removing ponytails and all these sorts of crazy things, what would have to be like some standout moments that you found the most challenging?
Do you want an oh shit moment, or do you want
like
oh my God, we did that moment, that could go different directions. Oh God, I have 2 oh shit moments that I think stand out like big time. Let's talk about it. One of them was on So You Think You Can Dance, and the choreographer wanted these veins done on the guys, and so they were painted in red all over their arms and their necks and everything that was exposed. And I always try the products. I always make sure that it's going to be able to be dance through, sweat proof, waterproof, wash your hands, see if it comes off and whatever. So I thought that it was just going to be great. And slowly but surely, they're going through their rehearsals. And, well, first of all, we walk in and wardrobe has them in all white.
Oh.
So all the boys are in white. They have red veins everywhere, and they have to go rehearse a couple times before we even shoot it. So it was a pre-tape, and it just started bleeding all over the white, all of them. They were sweating so bad. It didn't matter. It was waterproof, smudge proof, whatever the hell. They just melted all over. Gosh. I was like, oh my God, this just needs to go away. Can we just get through this number? Wardrobe was like, how do I cover red on white? Oh, and I swear it's trial and error. There was no reason why it shouldn't have worked. It was, totally tried and true, and it just backfired. And then another was I had to create the world record, Guinness Book of World Record for. Do you remember this, Dean?
You do.
No, I do, because that was the only time I've ever wished that I was happy I wasn't Tonia trying to figure that out.
Just watching from the outskirts.
And it was nails. Like, it was the world's longest nails. And this woman's nails were like 5 feet long. Like, I don't even know. So I called, my special effects friends going, okay, how would we even go about doing this? They ended up making a wire mold. They went out to Vegas, did a wire mold of this woman's nails, were able to create them. And so the day of the show, the 2 imposters, they had to put the fake ones on, but put them on like acrylics. And these poor women had to walk around all day. I mean, you can't go to the bathroom. You can't do anything. You've got these 5 foot long nails, right? And so it's like taking forever. And they're like last up in the show. And the real woman is there with the 2 fake women. And we're backstage. And one of the girls goes to walk up on the stage, and she like banged one of the nails on a chair, and it went flying across the fucking back of the stage. And I'm like, oh my God, like they're supposed to be imposters and fool these judges that are out there. And so, God bless him. Ron goes and he like, re-glues it real quick, and we just like literally just prayed, like, please say that they don't knock anything when they go to sit down in their chair, and those things just stay on for this next 10 minutes.
You're like, ping, 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 ping.
I mean, it worked.
And what you just said, just, wishing just 10 minutes, give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And, for them to stay on. My whole thing is too, honestly, doing hair for dancing, if there's any kind of headgear that has to be anchored and sewn on, it's all great if you've got hair. But if you don't have hair, or you've got a buzzed head, there's been many times where I'm just watching and I don't know if I have to vomit or go to the bathroom because I'm like, just give me 30 more seconds. Do not fall off until, just give me 30, please just give me 30 more seconds. Because there's been times where I start to see it in a tango and it just starts to shift and I'm like, oh, help me. There's definite times where I'm like, I'm going to leave the room because I cannot even watch this.
Yeah.
But let me know when I come back in if I still have a job.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's stressful.
Yeah, that was Red Vein Day. I was like, I need to leave. I just can't watch this shit show anymore. So beyond repair.
I will say one of the biggest like moments for me, it was X Factor, and X Factor creative wise, they want, there's a creative team for this group and the executive producers and so on and so forth, the choreographer, we want to create this image, so we are making this contestant platinum blonde. And so I have a private studio because like to be able to do this in a regular salon is just not heard of, because schedules and timing wise, because the contestants are always busy. So we're at my private studio, and I have a colorist who's doing a retouch on this platinum blonde. So midway through the appointment, the colorist is like, she's losing some hair. And I was like, I go, okay. I mean, on a platinum, you just got to be careful not to overlap. And she's a colorist. I mean, she does this all the time. And I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. And so, because I'm working in the house on other stuff that I'm just trying to get ready for the show, she comes in and she's crying and she goes, no, there's a lot coming out. And I was like, we have a live show tomorrow. And so I literally go out to the studio and I'm looking, and it was honestly a good 6-inch circumference of hair gone. And she had long hair past her shoulders. And I remember calling my team, Megan Herrera, and I go, Megan, I just got off the phone with the exec in charge of production. Because I had to get some money, because I'm like, I need to buy a massive hairpiece for this because we have a live show tomorrow. And I go, Megan, here's your budget. I go, do not even come to that studio until you have a human hair platinum piece, because we got to make her look amazing. And I spent the majority of the entire night just consoling this contestant. I go, I promise you, I swear on every gay inch of my soul, you will look better than you've ever looked in your entire life. And she was like, okay, I try. And she was loving all the new looks she was getting with these pieces. But I'm telling you, I was like, and Megan Herrera, she goes, you know what, Dean, this is why I'm glad I'm not department heading this show. And I was like, just go get your hairpiece. I go, great, save your chitter chatter and just go get a hairpiece so we can make this magic happen. But that was like the major time where I'm like, what are we going to do? You divide, you conquer, and you make it work. And no one had a clue. And we hid it from other contestants. We hid it from there were literally a handful of people who knew, and that was it.
Oh my goodness.
So
That's
crazy.
just not what you want to be hearing while someone's doing that in the next room. They come out and go, there's a lot of hair missing. Now I'm curious as to what area of the head was this? Was it like towards the face, or was it around the back, or like?
It was the crown of her head.
Oh, okay. Oh. So was she just wearing top knots a lot?
We had a big 3/4 piece that we would attach, but we did a lot of really fun stuff with it. I'm not gonna lie.
But then, how was she dealing with it in her own life?
Well, because that was for the show, and I gave her, we made sure that she had the pieces, so she could use them. And
nice.
Now she's brunette again, and I go, maybe one day this will be funny, but I don't know right now. So we'll just go with it.
Oh, bless. Well, good on her for not completely, that she was able to carry on and get up there and do what she needed to do. That's awesome.
Yeah. Catastrophes. I mean, listen, all of them are learning experiences, and we chalk it up, and I can tell you right now that stuff will never happen again to either one of us.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So what were some moments that you were extremely proud of? I mean, I'm sure there's many.
Snow Globe, which was already mentioned, that was a great one. That one came out amazing. The fairies, I loved that one. We made.
What was that on?
These were
So You
on
Think
So
You
You
Can
Think You Can Dance.
Okay.
We did some really fun stuff in that fairy number with all of the characters kind of specialized.
It's really fun on shows like that because, wardrobe is working on their things. Tonia's working on her makeup stuff and I'm working on the hair stuff. And so collectively, like I'm building pieces, Tonia's doing all these appliques and just getting all of her makeup stuff ready and wardrobe. And it's one of those moments, it's hard to explain too. Because when you look at like all my hair pieces on the table, you're like, they're cute. But, it doesn't complete the look. And it's so imperative that you have both makeup, wardrobe, and hair all together. And when you see it come together, that's when I have my little aha moments in the back going, oh my God, this looks so good.
It looks so good.
Because the pieces you're like, and then even like wardrobe, that looks cute, but I wonder how it's going to look on. And then you see it on and you're like, holy buckets, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love that moment too. Just when it all comes together.
And it just kind of feeds us to even, all right, this is raise the bar. We're going to raise it again for the next one. Let's go to this.
That's awesome. So what does explain a week of work on a show like that to me? So are you rehearsing and shooting as the week goes on, or is it just rehearsal, and then shoot? Like how does it work?
Most of the time we're there just on VTR days. I think So You Think You Can Dance is the only one where we go in ahead of time and are there for the actual rehearsals.
Okay.
To have the prior conversations and whatnot.
Well, that one in World of Dance, we do a lot of that on World too.
Yeah.
Remember the first couple of seasons, yeah.
Yeah, kind of get an idea of the staging and all of that. And that helps because it really kind of just triggers, different ideas and, stuff that you wouldn't really think of if you were just looking at, a document sent to you of like, here's the creative. So you are there to be present and have that feeling and kind of, know what mood or what you're going for. But otherwise we're just there on VTR days, and sometimes it's just like, okay, hit the ground running. Let's just kind of get through everybody as quickly as we can and as efficiently as we can, and we just do our best.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what are the setups on shows like that? I've never worked on shows like what you guys do, so I'm so curious about what your setup is. Like, are you guys in trailers? Do you have a workroom that you're working together in? Is it side of stage kind of stuff? Like what?
All of it. All of those things.
You got a warehouse in downtown. We'll set up there.
Okay.
It's interesting too. We're just talking about that week long creative wise. So So You Think we have that creative meeting a week before the actual show, and throughout that week, this is what's really interesting, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's just, you only work 2 days a week. You work all week, because the barrage of emails you get from production, like every day we get different video clips of this dance. So now plug in your look to this dance. And, it's like the whole week is kind of your work because of the emails and just trying to keep track of, oh, we're going to cancel the hat on this number. I'm like, okay, where are my notes? I got to cancel the hat. We don't have a hat. So it's like throughout the week, you know what I mean? It's like, absolutely, we can't do this, we can't do that. And I was like, oh my God. And that's why I love to have my key copied, because I'm like, just be an extra set of eyes for me. Because when you've got, like on World of Dance, I'm like, we had this one group. Well, this is kind of a catastrophe story as well, but I'll get to it. But we had a group of, Japanese dancers, the Fabulous Sisters, and
oh my God.
One week they were like, we want all the girls to have bangs. Great. So I bought like 14 real human hair bang pieces to use on all of them. And they came in, and one of the moms cut everybody's bangs for this look. And you're like, and there was one time they went back to the hotel at lunch, but everybody, I don't know, might be a cultural thing, but they all like showered and changed their look.
And it was a look. Like, it was a full-on, like, black lipstick, like, moody. Everybody had gotten into their full get-up for a rehearsal, and they went home in the middle of the day, because they were minors, and all showered. And they show back up to set, and the producer comes over and is just like, oh, my God. Like, I need your help. What can you guys do? Dean and I were in the middle of the show backstage. And I was like, they did what?
Who told them that was okay?
No, and when we say a look, like, I mean, the hair was all sewn down in these pieces, and it was this absolute craziness. And
how on earth did they get out of it?
Well, in this particular instance, we had a part of our team still upstairs, part of our team downstairs working at the stage, us working with the judges. This was on one of those where we had, a million different locations, and it was like all hands on deck, like get them up into the makeup room. And, that's where your team is really important. It's like, listen, you literally have 15 minutes to get them back into the look that we did this morning. Can you do it? If you can't do it, it's fine, but I'm going to swap you out with this one, because you know what I mean? Like, I just need you to be where your comfort level is. And if you can't take the pressure, we'll just kind of move things around. And that was so funny though.
Well,
I mean,
and I mean, to answer the original question too, it's like, it might just be 2 days that we're shooting, but it literally is consuming us for the week. And so it really depends on that prep. And that's why I do love So You Think, because they do give us the day before where we can really kind of start to really finalize and organize those looks, because it's so much work that goes into it. I'm always like, practice does make perfect. I was in the Army, and I always talk about being combat ready. Just make sure you're ready for battle and you have all the tools you need, because we are gonna hit this, and we're gonna hit this hard, because we've got X amount of time. And I mean, honestly, I feel like we're both cheerleaders as well for our team, because we have powwows before the show, and we're like, these are the plan of it. This is the creative for this show, or for this, this group and this group, and here's how we're going to divide the teams up. We've got 3 or 4 different locations just for the show. So I'm going to have you on this soundstage, you on this other soundstage. Oh, you know what? We're also doing some press photos. That's going to be in the saloon on the back lot of Universal. So it's like, and then you're like trying to organize where your team is, and we have flow charts, and that's what's really important. You've got to have teams that talk to each other, both hair, makeup, all of us. And we're honestly, and it sounds so cliche, but we are a really big family, and we obviously love each other very, very much, but we also trust each other too, because I'm like, listen, I've got Mike Key's handling this, and Tonia's like, Mike Key's got this too. Let's go over here. It's like a big old checklist of stuff we've got to get done. And when you've got a good team, it just makes your mind a little more at ease.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge coordination. We're getting all of that together, it sounds like.
Well, and most of the time, we're not just doing one show at a time. A lot of our shows overlap and just happen to shoot on different days, so we're able to take on more than one at a time.
Oh my God.
So it's It's like, so you think you can dance, and America's Got Talent is always in the summer at the same time. So half the week is on one, and then the other half of the week is on the other.
So do you just have your kit like cut into two, or do you pack up
2
and
or 3
Yeah.
or 4, depends on.
Okay, that's smart. Oh my goodness. Wow.
But it
guys,
just becomes
it's
kind
very
of
impressive.
second nature, though, too. You know what I mean? Because the people that we hire, they know the type of show. It's not an episodic where we get to really cultivate one look and keep that character look for, X amount of weeks and so on and so forth. This is, we create a look that's going to be on stage for 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
and then once they're off, it's gone. Onto
well,
the
and
next.
also, how do you deconstruct and get those quick changes on? So there's just a lot of planning that goes into all the shows.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too, is like planning one look to the next and knowing where you can take it up to and to be able to take it back down. Like they'll go from, being a bird to the next number being a natural makeup to the next number being like where it's like, okay, so how do I, and then obviously we're not doing all the makeups, it's our teams as well. So how do we work out, getting from one look to the next or taking down a look to the next and having that being able to be translated to somebody else of what you need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just constantly trying to work out the most efficient way to get stuff done.
And you think about it too, like for World of Dance, we've got big teams of people. And I mean, a couple of I'll have a mannequin head and we'll do literally the style on the mannequin head, show the choreographer and the EP, this is the concept, because they physically need to be able to see it, especially how the dance works as well. But there's other key points. So those powwows that I was talking about, talking with our teams prior to, Tonia might say, listen, this team, it is imperative that the cat eye is prominent, so everybody looks the same. Or I could be like, listen, everybody needs to be in a top knot. Within this top knot, it has to be XYZ. So contestant 3, 4, and 5, they have little to no hair, so they need extensions. How do we build this to make them look like everybody else? And, and Tonia's doing the same thing as well. So it's all of those things just to make sure that our teams are on point, because it's hard to finalize 150 people on a show. And you have to appoint so many different team members just to make sure that look is executed in the way that has been previously discussed by choreographers and EPs and all the creatives as well. So it's a fine tuned machine for sure.
Executed and maintained, especially on the dance ones where, it's not like we do them and then they go out. They're rehearsing, they're backstage, they're doing reality, they're doing this. So it's like a constant upkeep of what's going on as well.
Yeah, so you guys must also have a pretty good gauge of the skill level of your team members, right? And who's stronger in what areas and things like that to be able to delegate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I always kind of leave a position or two, or when I add, new people to say we get an extra person for the day or whatever, I like to kind of bring in somebody new, because I like to meet people and, it's a way to just kind of introduce our format, what we need, kind of see what their strengths are, or, especially when people are coming from like movies or episodics or sitcom, it's just a very different pace. So sometimes it takes a minute to like adjust, but I love that there's the ability to like introduce people to what we do, because I think that it's just really exciting and it's fun and it's live and it's hard and it's, there's just so much that goes into it. But I think that it's just awesome when you can bring somebody into our world and, keep them around if they're not on a regular show. Or a lot of the time, so many people are on their shows for months and months and months. Like we switch shows every 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Right.
That's all we shoot it for.
Right.
So trying to just grab people when they're available and, have them come and play for a bit. It's always nice.
And listen, it's hard really to book a crew sometimes when it's only one day a week. And so a lot of times we will use the same people on different teams, because if it works for Tonia and I, like we were saying before, so you think we would shoot, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday is AGT. So we would have, a lot of people that would cross over different shows because we know they're available and they're not working on a Monday through Friday sitcom or whatever.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So with all this amazing work that you're doing with people who are like, it's high energy, these performances, the dancing, all that type of stuff. What are some tricks that you've learnt that you have, I guess, just implemented into your working structure?
Oh God, I don't know. I think that every situation's so different. It just
Yeah.
depends on, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much because it's performers, sometimes it's celebrities, sometimes it's dancers, sometimes it's acrobats, sometimes, so I think maybe the tips and tricks, and I think I said it earlier, is just being able to pick out those key things. Like, you got to be able to just recognize I've got X amount of, like, it's not always going to be your most perfect, best work. It's got to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and for me doing hair, to pinpoint the style is exactly right with Tonia, because it really depends. But I know that if it's a dance show, when there's any shadow of a doubt, I sew it in.
Mm-hmm.
And we sew the style in, we'll sew color in, we'll sew dimension in, because there's a lot of times where, when you're dancing in the hair world, we want to keep it like compact, and so it doesn't move, or we want to really anchor those base pieces. But it's just so much prep. For example, like I guess what I want to say is, we always have, like painter's blue tape. We'll put that on the wall, and we have pre-threaded needles so we can just go for a live show. We pull those needles off, and that's one thing that I pulled from the wardrobe department, because they do that constantly. But it's those little tips and tricks that really save us. And how do you lock in a ponytail? And one of the tips that I use, and I constantly talk about, is I take cooking, just regular cotton fabric, or cotton thread that you would tie up with chicken legs or whatever you do when you cook with it. But you dip it in water, squeegee it out, and then you tie that around a ponytail as tight as possible and clip those ends, because as it dries, it's going to constrict and it's going to get even tighter. And so it really helps too. And that's a tip that I give all my dancer little girls who have a hard time keeping a ponytail in. But, there's certain things those tips and tricks that you constantly pull. But again, it depends on the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess, Tonia, you really know your products inside out, don't you? I would imagine. You know what lasts and what deals, what you
Yes. Well, and sometimes, if you have a quick change, you want something that's not going to take forever to get off, so you kind of have to just feel out what exactly your next look is, or your next step is, if it's something that you're doing a quick change or something. But, also with high definition TV, and I feel like everything's constantly changing. Sometimes things work and it's like, well, this used to work. Why isn't it working now? So depending on what your stage lighting is, or, there's so many different factors when it comes to what we do as makeup artists that determines what you use on one show won't work on another show,
Yeah.
I started finding that a lot of like the preps that everybody's has the luminescence in it.
Mm-hmm.
I started finding I'd go up to someone and they would be like completely matte. And it's like, what's going on? Why are you looking like you're sweating on camera? And I figured out that it was a lot of these like primers that have the luminescence. Some of these cameras and stages will actually pull it out from underneath the makeup.
Right. Wow.
So it's also just kind of trying to figure out what's happening when stuff's not reading right or working right.
Yeah. And then keeping away from that product.
Yeah. We're constantly learning, it's, you never know enough.
Right.
Got to keep on it. That's awesome. Hey, I wanted to go over a Christmas story live with you guys, and how, like, what is the prep involved for something like that? Because it's like a movie length musical performance, right? That's broadcasting live. So I'm just curious what your side of things are getting ready for something like that.
I think our biggest, and it was something I had never done on another show, but it was such a massive set. There were so many different locations to be in that what I ended up doing was assigning a makeup artist per stage manager, so that a stage manager, we would all work to get the looks done. And then this is your track for the show. So you have everything you need, and then you just travel the sets with the stage manager. So it may not be the look you created, originally, but we're going to go ahead and stay there. And that way there was always somebody available from my department to be there for anything that would come up.
Yeah.
Well, and that show is challenging also, because all of those locations Tonia's talking about with the stage managers, there's never anything really inside. Everything was kind of outside. You're around this corner. You're in town square. You know, we were doing hair and makeup in a shed on the lot. And that was, and, you know, I remember one of the actors, he was a boy, and he goes, you know, it's really warm in here. Do you think we could turn the air conditioning on? And I go, look up for a second. Do you see all those holes? That's the sun you're seeing. We can't really do much about that. And he was like, oh, okay, so we'll just work quicker, and here's a fan. You know, so you divide and you kind of conquer that way. And that was the first time, too, where I'm like, we're literally changing wigs behind a house in some random yard, you know. So it was just much easier to assign people to the stage managers. So they stayed in that arena, they stayed in that area. And then I think I had 2 floaters, didn't you, Tonia? Or that would just go from area to area and just double check. I was one of those.
Yeah, when there was a big changeover with a lot of people.
Yeah, right. So how many times, I'm assuming, were you able to rehearse that entire thing?
Well, for me, it was probably my least favorite show I've ever done. Just in terms, I've never really had to struggle so much with production to have a full team for the full live dress rehearsals. And it was really it was frustrating because everybody wants 100%, but you only want to give us 25% of the team. And we can't execute those looks for 100 cast members and, you know, without the proper crew. And by the time, you know, for the live show, we got our proper crew, but it was almost like you have to fight just to get the manpower that you need. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, can you do a full rehearsal but only have 70% of your cast? It's like, no.
Well, I think they weren't even, I think there was one point, Dean, wasn't it, that they weren't even going to have hair and makeup, but they were going to have wardrobe, and everybody else on a rehearsal day were like, first of all, it's a period piece.
Yeah.
And it's a live piece. And like, why don't you think that you need hair and makeup? And like, we're important. Like, you gotta like see the whole thing. We gotta be able to time it out and know if we can do what we're planning on doing. Like, so I think we even had to fight to get in there with everybody.
It's our dress rehearsal. It's like our guide to figure out all of those little intricate details. Like, I mean, half the battle is just figuring out where this actor is going to go from this point to this point, and now we're, you know, for quick changes in this area. It's just a lot of logistics. And Tonia and I are so used to over planning because we would rather under promise and over deliver any day, but we can't do that if we don't have the right support. And so that was frustrating. And you know what? The show went off without a hitch, and I was super proud of it after we had finished it. But it was a tough show to do.
It was a really tough one.
Yeah, I think those challenges when you're dealing with the higher ups kind of fighting for what you need is those challenges aren't enjoyable. The creative challenges, absolutely. But those ones are just, ugh.
But those challenges they just kind of diminish your energy too, because you're constantly just battling. Dude, I'm just like, I need prep days. We can't have them. And I'm like, well, then how are we going to make those work? Yeah. You know, you just got to be realistic about expectations also. And I think that's a really strong point with both Tonia and I, because based on your expectations and what we have for budget and timing, this is what we can do. And I love that we both speak up, because we're like, there's no way we can do this in that amount of time unless we have X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And we put it out on the table, and it's up to the production to decide. And, you know, it does get frustrating, of course. And we just try to, you know, power through and make the magic happen, even if we don't have the resources that we need.
Yeah. But as you say, you need to speak out and just let them know what you need. Otherwise it just gets worse, I think.
My famous line is, "It's going to be great." Like, I always just throw that in there. It's going to be great.
I love it.
You say it enough times, you believe it, and then it all happens.
And everyone else will believe it. Yeah, that's great. So where do you guys find inspiration, like, to keep your looks current and fresh and like creative? Where do you pull resources from?
From each other, I think. Like, you know, a lot of the time just like seeing the wardrobe and catching a vibe, and then I'll go and I'll just kind of start Googling what I think that vibe is, and then start pulling pictures of, I mean, thank God for the internet. I can't imagine being a makeup artist, when all this stuff wasn't available and you can get anything at any second, it's, got to change it. Okay, how about this?
Right.
That's cool.
For inspiration for me, just doing hair, I try to take at least 2 or 3 classes a year, and not necessarily here in Los Angeles, but travel or I have certain people that I constantly follow because, in the past I've done platform work and I have a lot of friends within the industry as well. So I'm looking at NAHA and I'm looking at how, people are submitting for all of those different competitions. And what's really interesting is, and I do this quite often, is when, like, say I see a NAHA submission and I know the person who did that, like Delic, and I'll reach out to Delic and I go, hey, I'm really thinking about, do you mind if I take a portion of this look? But I'll give you inspo on it when I social and whatnot. But I also, how did you do that? Because I haven't seen that. And I love the network of creatives because all you have to do is ask. If you don't ask, you'll never know. And so I do a lot of Instagram trolling and follow some of my really, good hairdresser friends. And you see other things. And I am constantly practicing on the mannequin head and just trying to, figure new things out. And the thing with us is it's a live show. So you've got to practice because when you come to the table, you've got to be ready to eat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to be ready.
Love it. So what skills do you think are really important to have when you're designing shows like the ones you guys are doing?
Flexibility, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to have the personality to be able to just kind of go with the flow, like it's not all about you, a lot of times, sometimes, unfortunately, you can meet people or artists that it's all about me, look what look at my work, right. Where I think that we always want to get to like not just an overall point of perfection, not just my makeup's great, but I right. cheated wardrobe and hair time, sort of a thing.
But, the thing too, that's why the 80-20 is really important because, like if I have something that I'm like, Tonia, I really want to do this. And she was like, cool, we'll work around it. We'll do this and this. And Tonia will come to me and go, you know what? I love this new, I don't know, eye crystal and I want to use that. I'm like, great. I'll give you the full forehead. I'll put everything back. But that's what's really key is because sometimes when you ask people to be a little more flexible, some of them can get really agitated that you want to change their creative. And we're like, come on, this is a collective group of us. And that's what makes it so beautiful, honestly, because, now, and I'll just use one, like we did a carnival look for So You Think You Can Dance. And, Marina, who does wardrobe, because you know what, Dean, I'm going to do a really high feather collar. So I'd like to not have the hair down to mess it up. And I'm like, okay, so we'll focus on the top of the head. And I remember, because Tonia, you were jeweling the faces and you were like, I really have a lot of jewels that go on. I'm like, perfect. We'll keep the whole face open. So now I have the direction where I need to build, I'm going to use the top of the head. And that's my creative space. It's open. I know what the dance is, but I've worked with both of the departments and I want to make sure they're both happy with whatever and vice versa. If I'm like, you know what, I really want to try this long look. Can we do X, Y, and Z? And how can I prevent this braid from, slapping somebody in the head? And wardrobe's like, oh my God, let me teach you how to do a swing stitch. I was like, what the hell is a swing stitch? So I'm always open to learning too, because listen, I know how to do a whip stitch. That's about it. But, anytime you can learn from other departments, that's really awesome too.
Yeah. Well, I kind of love that about I feel like if you walk into a hair and makeup room you're definitely at some point in the day hearing a conversation about, hey, I love this because, hey, have you tried this? Always sharing information and bouncing ideas off each other. And I think there's a lot of that in our industry. And like I said, you just always learning. I learn something new every day about what I've been doing for, over 20 years.
No, I love it.
And, the thing, too, is I've day played on episodics and different types of shows. And I'm always shocked because I was day playing on a show. And I remember you know, because we chat with everybody. It's like, you know, we're very social people, hair, makeup, wardrobe. And I remember I pulled up my set chair, you know, and I'm sitting by some of the makeup people, and I was literally like reprimanded by the hair person. We do not talk to makeup. And I was like, how do you guys work? Like, honestly, how do you work together? You guys are like giving side eye, stank eye. And I was like, oh my God, if Tonia ever did that to me, I'd be in the corner crying like the biggest. Well, I do that anyway, but I wouldn't be able to function. Like, I need to, like, I'm like, I want to know about these people. I've never met these makeup people. We do not sit with them. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are mean girls.
It's so bizarre. I mean, I moved over from New Zealand, and in New Zealand, we do both hair and makeup. So to come here and then have to choose and then see some departments, so separate and just like, what? How? I don't understand. And I would go to set and the makeup people would be over there and the hair people would be over there, and they'd really keep in their little cliques. And I was like, I was always the hair person that was hanging around the makeup people and going back and forth and all that type of stuff. So I completely understand where you're at with that. I've always found it so bizarre because it is such a cohesive thing. It's all one situation. It's so bizarre.
You got to work together. That's what it's about.
It's so much more fun.
So much more. And Tonia sees me cry more than anybody else. I'm just going to put it out there already.
Oh my God.
Because if there's an emotional dance, I'm crying. And she's like, pull your shit together, Dean. I'm like, I can't. That was beautiful. And she's like, and she even knows, she goes, I bet Dean's crying right now. Give me $20. I bet you.
I'm so not emotional, so I can spot it a mile away.
You could do a crying cam. Have a crying camera ready for whenever a tear is going to fall from Dean's eye.
Trust me. I don't know. It's just me. Whatever. Anyway, we are like set husband and wife. We see each other so much, and we know so much about each other's lives, and that's what's really important too. Because there's, listen, we have one life to live, and work should be fun and educational and everything else as well. And that's why I love working with Tonia.
Yeah.
Well, we know how to be each other's like sounding boards, where it's like you just have to get shit off your chest real quick, and it's like, okay, I just need to shut up and listen, and being like, it's going to be great, as I always say, or vice versa. There's been, plenty of times where you've had to talk me off a ledge where I'm just like, I can't deal anymore. And you're like, listen, it's going to be fine. Like sometimes you just need people to just say it's going to be okay.
Yeah, Tonia's like, you're being a bit of a dick today. Are you okay? What's going on? And I go, but that's what makes it important. And I think that's why we work so well together, and we genuinely love each other, and we want to make sure that we have great experiences.
Yeah, it's important. That's awesome, especially when you're doing those kind of hours. And absolutely. So can we choose a tool or a product that you would never want to work without? Can you narrow it down for me, guys?
I know my product.
Go ahead, Dean.
What is it? Go, do it.
Well, because I had the opportunity to help develop a product called the InStyler, and it is literally, and I'm not saying it just because I was part of creating it, but the 3/4-inch iron literally has saved me on every single dance show. Because, the thing that really is a big issue for hair is you curl it, you set it, but then after a while, it starts to drop. Mm-hmm. But I've always felt like when I use that 3/4 inch, it just locks the hair in. And all I really need to do is freshen it up with either backcombing or just ruffle it up. But that is definitely a must-have tool, because I know if I have that, I can achieve like 4 to 7 different looks just from that one tool, which is key for me.
Nice. There you go. Winning.
And it's available on Bed Bath & Beyond, right? Bed Bath & Beyond, Ulta, Target, Walmart, Sears, available on Amazon Prime, wherever you need to get it. Just saying.
And it's the only thing that my hair will set and actually curl. I have the worst hair when it comes to trying to do anything with it. And that is the only iron that will actually leave a curl in my head all day.
Nice. So is that your product as well, Tonia? Or
well, for hair. No, for makeup, I think something I couldn't live without is my Color Science corrector palettes. I feel like if there's anything you can't get knocked down, like a capillary or a vein or a blemish or birthmark that just keeps kind of bleeding through your concealer and your foundation, you can just always guarantee that a little tap in there on top of it will totally cancel out anything that you're fighting against.
Nice.
Those two color palettes are color correctors are definitely something I pull out every single day.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So who would you guys like to hear on the podcast?
I am a huge fan of Gail Ryan.
Brilliant.
I just love how she constructs, how she sets. She's got a lot of wisdom.
I love it. Tonia?
I think Venial would be interesting. You know, she's got such a large arsenal of looks and films and stuff that she's done that it's, you know, character, beauty. You know, she's been a judge on a show, so she's been on the other side of the camera. You know, it'd be kind of interesting to see all of those different aspects and how she feels about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. This has been so much fun chatting with you and educational, I have to say.
Oh, you learned
Thanks for having us.
Tell me what you learned. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, it's just hearing how these shows work, because I've never worked on them, and obviously it's very different. So it's fascinating to me.
It's funny because this is the only format I've ever worked in, you know, besides day playing here and there. You know, I this is just what I know. So I realize how foreign a lot of the stuff we do is when new people come in or come onto the team, where it's just like, oh, wow, okay. And I'm like, you can do it. You're going to be great.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. For links to see more about our guests, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or our website, thelastlookspodcast.com. If you want to keep up with new episodes being released, be sure to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, or any podcast streaming platform. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, share it. The Last Looks Podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.